Hello students, so in this presentation I shall be discussing about the topic which is constructors with default arguments. Now as per the rule, all of you must be knowing that a default constructor is the one that has no parameters. But if you look over here, this particular constructor still has parameters. The parameters are eCode and eSalary. Now, even if a constructor has parameters, we can still treat that constructor as a default constructor, provided if it has parameters, then all the parameters should use default arguments. Now let's check it out here. This constructor identified by the name employee, as it resembles the class name which is also employee, has got two parameters, eCode and eSalary, and both these parameters has been assigned initial values. The parameter eCode has been assigned initial value of 110 and the parameter eSalary has also been assigned an initial value of 17,000. So in this case, all the parameters for this constructor named employee has been assigned an initial value. And for this reason, this constructor is also known as a default constructor, in addition to being called as the constructor with default arguments. So we call this constructor as a default constructor, as all its parameters contain an initial default value. Now I shall explain this sample program to make you understand how a constructor works. The program is going to start from the main function, as main is the inception of a program, and once it enters inside the body of the main function, it tries to execute this statement. With the help of this statement, it creates two different objects. The first object is EMP and the second object is EMP1, which takes 200 as a parameter. Now both these objects EMP and EMP1 are created out of the same class known as employee. Now as soon as you create this object named EMP out of the class named as employee, these data members which are declared as private and these member functions which are declared as public shall be bundled together into a single unit and then bind to this object. It shall be bind to this object named EMP to form an encapsulation around this object. And once this is done, automatically the compiler is going to invoke or call this default constructor inside this class employee. And since its body part has been defined outside of this class using the scope resolution operator, the control is going to come over here and then initialize the data member EMP code of the class with the default value of eCode, which is 110. So the data member EMP code will now get the default value of 110. Again, the data member EMP salary shall be initialized with the default value of eSalary, which is 17,000. As a result, the data member EMP salary gets the default value of 17,000. So this puts EMP code as 110 and EMP salary as 17,000. But those values shall be against this particular object, which is EMP. So here it is. These values of 110 and 17,000 are specific to this particular object known as EMP for the data members EMP code and EMP salary. Now once the object EMP has been created, then the class employee creates another object by the name EMP1. Now this object takes one parameter with the value 200. Now as soon as this object gets created, these data members and these member functions shall be bind to this particular object identified by the name emp1 and then form an encapsulation around this object. Once the encapsulation has been done, then automatically the compiler shall invoke this constructor by the name employee. The parameters eCode and eSalary has got initial values of 110 and 17,000. Now note that these are the default values for these parameters. Now if you look at this object emp1, it has got a parameter with the value 200. Now this particular value 200 shall override the value in the first parameter eCode, meaning this value 200 shall replace the value 110 that is to be assigned to eCode. And once the value 200 replaces 110 to be assigned to eCode, then in the function body during the initialization process, the value 200 which replaces the value 110 for the parameter eCode shall be assigned to the data member emp code. As a result, the data member emp code will now hold the value 200 that is coming out of eCode, and then the data member emp salary will hold the value 17,000 that is coming out of eSalary. So as of now we have got the data member emp code holding the value 200, as 200 has replaced the value 110 for eCode, and then we have the data member emp salary holding the value 17,000 that is coming out of this parameter eSalary. And all these changes are specific to only this particular object, that is emp1. So we now have emp code having the value 200 and emp salary having the value 17,000, that is both these data members are assigned these values when they are specific to this particular object, that is emp1. So as the first statement gets executed, as soon as the objects emp and emp1 gets created, automatically the constructor for the class gets invoked or called, and then the data members of the class gets initialized with the default values. Now in the next step, it prints the text, here is the employee information, using the cout command, and so I get to see this text under the output. Now in the next step, it tries to print the equality operator 33 times, because when the value of I starts from 0 and if it ends at I less than equal to 32, then the value of I will range from 0 to 32. Okay, 0 to 32. So that is 33 times. So 33 times it is going to print this equality operator into the output. So here it is, the equality operator is going to be printed 33 times in the output. Now using the object emp, it tries to access the member function display. Since it has been declared under the public section, so it is accessible outside of the class, and this permits the object emp to access this member function display. And then the control is going to move from this calling function into this call function and then execute the body part inside this call function. The first statement displays employee code and the value assigned to the data member emp code, but remember this is specific only to this particular object, which is emp. Now as the data member emp code holds the value 110, when this is specific to the object emp, so it displays employee code 110 as printed in this output. Next, it prints the text employee salary and then the value assigned to the data member EMP salary. As the data member EMP salary has been assigned the value 17,000 when it is specific to the object EMP, so I get to see employee salary 17,000 to be printed in the output. Here it is. The output shows employee salary 17,000. And once both these statements gets executed, the body region of the member function display gets over, and then the control moves to the next line after the calling of the member function display, that is to here, and then it executes the function endl with the help of this cout command. Now what is the purpose of this endl keyword? The purpose of this endl keyword is to skip a line. So just after printing all these texts, it then moves to the next line over here. After that, again it prints the text. Here is the employee information using this cout command, and this puts this text in the output exactly out here, and then it prints the equality operator 33 times as shown by this for loop. This shows the equality operator getting printed 33 times just after this text. Then at the end, using the second object EMP1, it tries to access the member function display. Since it is already declared as public, the permission to access it has been granted to this object EMP1. As a result, the member function has been accessed, and then the control shifts from this calling function into this call function, and then it executes the body of this call function. Okay, so in this body part, it executes these two statements. Okay, the first statement prints the text employee code into the output, followed by the value of the data member EMP code. Okay, now what is the value of this data member EMP code? Now since this data member is specific to this particular object EMP1, and we already know that the value 200 has been assigned to the data member EMP code for the specific object known as EMP1. As a result, this statement prints employee code 200 into the output. Okay, so I get to see it in the output. Again, the next statement prints the text employee salary into the output, followed by the value of the data member EMP salary. Now, as the value of the data member EMP salary that is specific to the object EMP1 is 17,000, so I get to see employee salary 17,000 getting printed exactly as it is in the output. And after this gets printed, the body of the call function display ends here, and then the control moves to the next line from where it started. That is, in the next line, the main function closes with this closing parenthesis and the program ends. So after the execution of this program, I get to see this particular thing in the output. So that's it. With this, I end my presentation here.